Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06 on the second day of January, second day of the year. Happy New Year. 2024 is off and running, and we got you covered here on O'Connor and Company. At 7:05, Sarah Perry of Heritage Foundation. 7:35, Bethany Mandel. And at 8:05, Denise Rucker-Krepp on DC Crime. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Happy New Year, Jules.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a new year, and we've got a new slate of allegations against the president of Harvard, Claudine Gay. 6 new charges of plagiarism. Harvard did not respond to any request for comment from the journalists at Washington Free Beacon who continue to find these instances. Let me show you some of it. This is from this is one of Gay's 17 published works that they looked into, and then it's actually these days because of the internet. It's not that difficult to search for plagiarism. You know, you take a couple of sentences from one article, you do a search for it, you find it show up somewhere else. And, you know, there's some legwork. It's tedious, but it can be done. Yeah. And it seems like the journalists at the Washington Free Beacon are the only ones on the planet Earth who are interested in this story.
Yeah, our friend Christian Toto made a good point on Twitter. He said, did the New York Times get the scoop? Did the Washington Post, CNN? No. And that's revealing, too. We have talked this morning already about the media and tech giants and government agencies being in cahoots to hide things from the voters. Yeah. And this is just another example. This isn't, just hiding Claudine Gay's clear, problems
copy
with
paste.
Scholarship. Yeah.
It's copy paste. It's here. This is a passage from a work published by a scholar named David Cannon. The Voting Rights Act is often cited as one of the most significant pieces of civil rights legislation passed in our nation's history. The central parts of the VRA are Section 2 and Section 5. The former prohibits any state or political subdivision from imposing a voting practice that will deny, abridge the right of any citizen of the United States to vote on account of race or color. The latter was imposed only on covered jurisdictions with a history of past discrimination, which must submit changes in any electoral process or mechanism to the federal government for approval. All right, now, here's Claudine Gay's version. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 is often cited as one of the most significant pieces of civil rights legislation passed in our nation's history. The central parts of the measure are Section 2 and Section 5. Section 2 reiterates the guarantees of the 15th Amendment prohibiting any state or political subdivision from adopting voting practices that deny or abridge the right of any citizen of the United States to vote on account of race or color. Section 5 imposed only on covered jurisdictions with a history of past discrimination, which requires Justice Department preclearance of any changes in it. So you can see it's exactly the same. She's taken one or two words every two sentences and paraphrased it.
Yeah. No. She's added just a few words. They have them side by side.
Yes.
And they've sort of they've italicized areas that she's added. And Larry, it is shocking to see it side by side. I mean, when you read it, you can hear the similarities, but when you see it side by side, it is cut and paste, and then she added a few words here and there.
And this brings the total number of allegations of plagiarism to 50. 50.
Yeah. And
only one conclusion. Well, there's two conclusions you can reach here, because you can't say this isn't plagiarism. All right, that's out of bounds. And by the way, no one is claiming it. No one is saying, well, no, that's not plagiarism. No.
No, everyone says it, yes.
The only conclusion you can reach is that either she is being protected for various reasons, and you can fill in the blanks, whether it's because she's a diversity hire, because she's a black woman, and I believe lesbian, and she was hired after, a string of nothing but white men who were in charge of Harvard, and she was hired during George Floyd, and so it was Harvard making a statement, and now, that's more important than anything else. Okay, that's one conclusion that can easily be reached. Although I think the other conclusion is, frankly, probably even more realistic, and that is, this is actually not unique. The fact is, if they open the floodgates and fire Claudine Gay for this, the reason that other presidents of universities aren't saying anything is because they probably do the same thing. Academia is trash. Academia is a flaming garbage bin.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And my hunch is that this is ubiquitous. This is just what academia in America is. Now, add to that the fact that she's a black woman who got her job because of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, then you've got the perfect storm. But this is Harvard.
But I will say Claudine Gay is unique in that she is the president of Harvard who has never written a book. Her scholarship is thin. And apparently even thinner now that we know she cut and pasted most of the articles that she wrote. Yeah. That is unusual, Larry. I mean, Lawrence Summers wrote many books. His scholarly work, was solid. Now, obviously, university presidents have to do a lot of fundraising and they have other administrative roles, but she is unique in that her scholarship is so thin. I do think it's also important to note that there's a very powerful person who backs her, and that's Barack Obama.
Yeah.
It is very clear. I mean, I think Barack Obama is in charge of a lot of things in this country. And there have been reports that he did not want her fired. And I think that has a lot of weight. I think Obama carries, I think if Obama doesn't want someone fired, nobody gets fired. Yeah. So,
And journalists out there, journalists who used to tell us that they were all about the truth and about the Fourth Estate and how they were speaking truth to power. Is there anything more powerful in this country outside of electoral politics in corporate America than the president of Harvard University? That's an incredibly powerful position and incredibly influential. And the speak truth to power folks in journalism who wrap themselves in the First Amendment and how everything they do is so vital and so important to the truth in our country, they could care less. They are sitting back and watching the Free Beacon break the story instead of them, and they're not touching it so that when people raise the issue, they can say, "Well, take it from the source." That's conservative media.
It's we also Claudine Gay is this, I firmly believe that this is a DEI hire. She's not qualified. I just laid out why.
Yeah.
But there's another thing that they don't want crushed. This this idea of this sort of girl boss, right? Yet she persisted, right?
Yeah.
Claudine Gay is also, this
Great point.
Strong. It's not just that she's, it's not. A lot of people are focusing on the black.
Standing up to this turmoil.
Yes. Yes. And so you've got several intersections. We talk about like intersectionality. She has several intersections. The gay, the fact that she's gay, she's a woman, she's black. She is just a powerful person because, again, she has so many intersections. So,
and the journalists ignore this because of political affiliations, political alignment. That's it. Bottom line, they're not journalists. They're activists. They're political tools. And since this story does not fit in what their agenda is politically, they're not going to touch it. They're going to ignore it. They're going to pretend it doesn't happen. And if anyone does raise it, that's just conservative media. Washington Free Beacon is conservative media. They also have great investigative journalists over there who are finding these stories. And
the only investigative journalists left are conservative media, and occasionally you'll get someone like a Schallenberger and a Matt Taibbi. And boy, guess who showed up at Matt Taibbi's house? The IRS.
That's
the day
right.
that he was testifying. It is dangerous to do what conservative media and these outliers are doing.
It's why the National Journalism Center, which is an offshoot of Young America's Foundation, created the Dow Awards, because we gave the folks who did Twitter Files, and by the way, the two runner-ups to the Dow Prize this year for investigative journalism both came from the Washington Free Beacon.
Yes.
Because Pulitzer won't look at this. Pulitzer doesn't care about this. Right. And so this is, it's incredibly revealing, not just about academia, but also about how the media is covering this story. And if my kid was going to Harvard right now, first of all, I'd probably pull him out. But if my kid were going to Harvard right now, I would say on every paper, you just copy and paste something that's already been published.
Right.
Put your name on it and
don't forget, and
dare
Larry,
them to say something.
It's a great point. And don't forget, Harvard, how many did they expel last year? Something like 30 kids they expelled for plagiarism. I'm sure it wasn't even close to being as bad as what President Gay has done here.
It's 6:15.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
WMAL. Making sense of mainstream media. Because the double standard is real. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
David Schwimmer, the star of Friends, has come out against hypocrites in the women's rights movement. He says they fight for all victims of sexual violence unless they're Jews. The Jewish-American actor has posted a scathing post on Instagram calling terrorist sympathizers so-called women rights organizations that do not condemn Hamas sadistic acts of rape. Denial is an easy way to avoid expressing compassion. Where is the outrage? It's a very heartfelt statement after he has seen the equivocation in Hollywood and in left-wing groups who refuse to come out for this October 7th and the intervening days since October 7th, including the horrific acts of sexual assault and violence that continue to this day as women are being held as hostages, continue to be held as hostages over 2 months later. It is over 3 months later, or nearly 3 months later. This is the single most despicable act of sexual violence against women and girls that we have seen in centuries. This is Dark Ages stuff that we're seeing from these hordes of villainous terrorists called Hamas. And women's rights groups have barely mentioned it.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, we have seen this type of stuff in Africa. Some terrorist organizations raping women and using it as a weapon of war. We have seen this, but and those organizations decry it loudly, have fundraisers in Hollywood about that kind of sexual violence being used as a weapon of war. But when it happens to Jews, everybody goes quiet.
Yeah.
And if you have not read, I don't know, Larry, if you read the New York Times.
I did. It was harrowing.
It was very hard to get through. But just think of that, Larry.
This is the article. The headline is "Screams Without Words: How Hamas Weaponized Sexual Violence on October 7th." It is worth the read.
It is worth the read, but I want to note it took the New York Times 3 months to have an article to highlight the rapes that happened on October 7th and are probably continuing to happen because don't forget there are still hostages. There are still innocent Israeli civilians being held
before our eyes.
in
It's
Gaza.
happening. Yeah, and that's why I say this is the worst in centuries, because you're right. I mean, listen, sexual violence occurs in many war-torn nations and in many chaotic nations in the third world and such, but not in an ongoing systematic way as we see continue with the events of October 7th. The events of October 7th are still happening today as these women and girls are being held against their will and being exploited and abused in horrible ways. Good for David Schwimmer for speaking out on this. And the silence is despicable, and it's horrific. And frankly, it does help. It does help when high-profile actors speak out about stuff like this, because you can't run and hide. And he's a man of the left. He is one of them.
He should name names. I will say, good for David Schwimmer. Why doesn't he name names? Why doesn't he say, I'm really disappointed in my friend Jennifer Aniston, for instance, or
this
Courtney
organization,
Cox,
or that
who's
organization.
been great? You know who's been great? The people in Hollywood who've been great are Patricia Heaton. These are actors that are known to be on the right.
That's right.
Okay. There are not everybody in Hollywood is a coward, but it just happens to be the brave ones tend to be right of center.
It's super easy to jump out there and say, if you support Trump, you're a Nazi. You get nothing but accolades here. Right. But here we've got actual Nazi behavior. Yeah. And the silence is deafening. Coming up, we've got Bethany Mandel joining us at 7:35 to comment on this and how powerful this can be when Hollywood starts to shine a light on this, and why it's taken so long. That's Bethany Mandel at 7:35. Right now it's
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:36. It's O'Connor and Company. I just want to clean up something here, Julie Gunlock.
Okay.
I just noted correctly that Elvis Presley was performing at Mar-a-Lago, and I only gave two options, which is he came back from the dead to perform, or it was an Elvis impersonator. Obviously, the third option is Elvis never died. But Elvis is, in fact, still with us.
I forgot about that theory.
Yes, I just want to clear that up. Coming up at 7:05, Sarah Perry from Heritage Foundation, 7:35, Bethany Mandel, and at 8:05, Denise Rucker-Krepp on the crime in D.C. and whether we can actually make a difference moving forward. And by we, I mean, our corrupt elected officials. That's all coming up. But first, we have a late-breaking critter news story here that goes along with the earthquake that we just mentioned. Again, if you're just waking up, or perhaps you felt it while you were sleeping, a 2.8 earthquake, a 2.8 on the Richter scale earthquake hit in Rockville, but it was felt well into Frederick County and into northwest D.C. It was right around 1 in the morning, and, people obviously get traumatized by this sort of thing, but it affects critters even worse. The amazing, Julie, have you ever seen the studies that animals actually can sense an earthquake just like moments before it actually happens?
Yeah.
Animals are clued into the. Animals are specifically grounded, I think. Some animals more than others.
I think that excludes golden retrievers, who literally just
I was
sleep
going to
through
say,
everything.
some
golden
animals are a
retriever
little
was
bit less aware than others, and some are more aware. Like cats. I don't know if you have cats in your
I do not.
life or ever have. No. Cats are very intuitive creatures. They sense things. Mm-hmm. They're evil, some people would say. But we had a local Montgomery County resident who talked to Channel 7 about the earthquake that we just had overnight and was quite concerned over how his furry feline reacted to it.
I didn't even know it could be an earthquake in Maryland. The cat hasn't went to sleep yet. The cat's been up. They traumatized the cat. The earthquake in Maryland traumatized my cat, man.
I love this man.
We need to bring him in the studio.
This man has his priorities right. Yeah, it's not a cat will go back to sleep.
The earthquake in Maryland traumatized my cat, man.
There's a lot out there that can traumatize a cat, but you throw an earthquake in the mix, and it's not going to be good. I hate to break it to this guy, but the cat doesn't sleep through the night anyway. You have no idea what that cat is doing while you're sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Also, cats are weird. Cats are weird.
Cats are late night predators.
Yeah, I did have cats, and man, they are something else.
Well,
cats.
Imagine how weird your cats would be around an earthquake, though.
Oh,
they'd be traumatized.
Yeah, they'd be even weirder.
Can we hear my man again one more time here?
They traumatized the cat. The earthquake in Maryland traumatized my cat, man.
I love him.
I love that WJLA's out there, mad on the street. Tell us what happened with the earthquake. Well, let me tell you something about my cat.
I'm fine, but my cat.
Fine. The kids are fine, but the cat never be the same. So there you go. As with Eddie, as the late great Andrew Breitbart once told me, every story ultimately is going to be a media story. Well, honestly, every news item ultimately is going to be critter news.
Yes.
There's your news story, and then the news shot through the lens of the critters.
I don't know how we pivot to this other story.
Oh,
the John Karl story.
Well,
it's a tough segue.
You know what?
Here.
We're professional broadcasters.
In other critter news,
Jonathan Karl, who is the co-anchor of ABC News this week. I didn't realize he got the co-anchor gig there with George Snuffleupagus. He's the co-anchor. He's got a brand new book out, which basically is propaganda about Trump. The headline is, or the title of the book, Tired of Winning, Donald Trump and the End of the Grand Old Party. So this is a journalist. This is the guy that ABC News puts out there as their objective anchor.
Yes.
Donald Trump and the End of the Republican Party.
Yes, he's catastrophizing here.
Yes.
Okay,
and the whole
of course.
Major thrust of the book is the final days of the Trump presidency, the events leading up to January 6th, post-January 6th, and how if Trump wins a second term, it's the end of our country. All right? That's basically the thesis.
It's just so absurd.
That's the thesis of the book, and he's the co-anchor of the Sunday show for ABC News. Yep. And then Sunday on the show, he had this interview. Listen to a little bit of it. These are 3 former Trump staffers. One of them, an employee of ABC News, Alyssa Farah, who works at The View. One of them, Cassidy Hutchinson, who testified before January 6th, written a book, and her testimony has been blown apart.
Completely.
To be She's the one who said that Trump like jumped, tried to assault the Secret Service agent driving the Beast to try to get him to drive him to January 6th.
Yeah, because his arms are that long.
Yes.
Yeah.
So her testimony has completely been shown and proven to be the fraud that she is. And then a third person, and
who I don't know who this person is.
She's got a book coming out at some point, I suppose.
Of course.
Sarah Matthews, former White House deputy press secretary. It's 3 white women who worked for Trump who are now making a name for themselves by being anti-Trump. And here's a little bit of the interview.
What would it mean, in your mind, if Donald Trump became president again? What would a second Trump term look like?
Fundamentally, a second Trump term could mean the end of American democracy as we know it. And I don't say that lightly. We all witnessed him trying to steal a democratic election before and going to historic and unconstitutional lengths to do so. And that just shows that he's willing to basically break every barrier to get into power and to stay into power. But also, I'm very concerned about what the term would actually look like.
We don't need to speculate what a second Trump
Can
term
I just?
would look like.
I'm done. I'm done with them.
Yeah,
Notice who isn't mentioned in any of this? The voters.
Right.
If Trump becomes president, it's because overwhelmingly the American people want him to be president.
That's right.
Against all odds, against all media, against all narratives, against all celebrities, against the full court press against him and his voters. All they want to do is talk about how terrifying it is if the voters decide something we don't like.
Yeah.
And Mark Levin properly highlighted this on social media and says ABC News is DNC News. This isn't news. This is an infomercial.
And it's Jonathan Karl selling a book.
And it's exactly. Everything that these women said validate the thesis of his book.
Yes. This is not a news show. This is a book tour that John Karl is on. He's hosting his own interview of basically the thesis of his book.
Mark Levin continues, our media are full of deplorables, hacks. If I recall correctly, 2 of the guests wrote a book about Trump and profited from their disgruntlement.
Yep.
Where are the Obama and Biden stories, the Bush 43 stories? After 4 subsequent presidencies, only now are Clinton's ties to Epstein coming out. No thanks to the media. But no, we're gonna trot these people out who are selling books and who make literally millions of dollars, Alyssa Farah, for being the only reason she's on that panel on The View is because she can call herself a former Trump staffer who is now
and she
anti-Trump.
promised. I remember when we talked about it when she was sort of trying out. She said, "I have the tea. I have the tea."
Yeah.
She was willing to spill all sorts of gossip about the Trumps and the Trump White House, and then profit.
And this was
from
news. And this was news on ABC. This is the Sunday show.
That's loyalty
this is
for Alyssa Farah.
the first weekend of 2024, and this is how we're starting in this presidential year.
Yep.
If you're looking to alleviate the stress and uncertainty of selling your home, look no further than Sarah, Debbie, and Reynolds and Power Home Team with Keller Williams. They've got a Sell with Certainty program. It'll guarantee your home will sell without even having to list, and at the same time, you'll get top dollar. Your home is a significant asset. Choosing the right team to help you sell it can be challenging. I highly recommend Debbie, Sarah, and Reynolds and Power Home Team. They're the realtors I trust. Literally, they're my realtors. Empower Home Team provides exceptional service and valuable advice and employs unique systems to maximize the money you can get for your home. Reach out to my friends, my realtors, Debbie and Sarah at Reynolds and Power Home Team. It's 844-344-SOLD. That's 844-344-SOLD, or online. Just go to DebbieHasTheBuyers.com. That's DebbieHasTheBuyers.com. 645 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the 5s with Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. It's 6:48 here on this Tuesday morning in your nation's capital. You remember the mayor of Boston held that non-whites only exclusive segregated, racially segregated holiday party. Just people of color. You'll remember she was bragging about it, in fact. Here, listen.
Are you concerned this lends itself at all to further divisiveness?
No, I mean, again, this is a group that has been in place for many, many years. We celebrate all kinds of connection and identity and culture and heritage in the city. We want to be a city where everyone's identity is embraced.
God, they love segregation. They love it. Democrats can't get enough of it. That's why Sheldon Whitehead, the senator from Rhode Island, continues to be a member of a whites-only beach club. Well, this has been investigated now, and surprise, surprise, the Attorney General of Massachusetts has decided that the 4 complaints over Mayor Michelle Wu's exclusive racially segregated holiday party did not, in fact, violate any laws. So there you go. You can have an official government event that is segregated in Massachusetts, and you're not violating any laws.
Yeah, that's not a surprise that judge found that. But I have a theory, Larry.
It wasn't a judge. Sorry, It was the Attorney General, a Democrat who has declined to press any charges. Said, "Oh, no, no."
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're
public accommodation laws, of course, prohibit this sort of thing, but tax dollars apparently for the governor's office is fine.
Great. I have a theory, though, Larry.
Yeah.
This Boston mayor, Michelle Wu, is married to a white guy. I think she hates her husband. She just wanted to go to a party without him. That's my theory.
That could very well be it. Or it's just that she recognizes that in a place like Massachusetts, even though she's in a mixed race marriage, if you don't fully embrace the Black Lives Matter, anti-racism, segregationist mantra, you don't have any political future. And so despite the fact that she's willing to be married to a person of another race, she needs to boost her cred with the racist anti-racists.
Yeah. Well, she is also she was in the news yesterday because she said every single person.
Oh, I've got that.
Okay.
Yeah, hang on. Here she is.
Every person, every human being has the legal right to come to the United States and seek asylum or shelter, and those policies have been in place for a long time. But when the review of that individual's particular situation and the then decision to allow the pathway to stay and or work authorization that comes along with that, when that process is so drawn out, people are stuck. They are looking to work, looking to contribute, looking.
Think about this. She went to Harvard, by the way, so she's standing by Claudine Gay. She says every human being has the legal right to come to the United States and seek asylum. The problem is the legal process to determine whether it's a legitimate asylum claim is so drawn out. Well, if you're opening the gates to billions of people around the world, I
wonder why.
How many judges do you think we need to accommodate literally everyone on the planet?
I think
God, they're brilliant.
I think Governor Abbott needs to start sending more to Boston.
Yeah,
that's my suggestion.
It's legally
since she welcomes them.
That's right.
And doesn't want a long drawn out process. They can just go live in Boston.
Just send them to Boston. Absolutely.
There you go.
It's enough to make you pull your hair out, but don't, because you only have a few strands of hair to spare, right? Well, if you go and do something about it and grow your hair back, then you'll be able to. Well, don't pull your hair out because still you'll have the same problem. But you understand my point. You can grow your hair back right now. Whether you've lost your hair or your hair is thinning due to hormones or medications or stress or genetics or whatever it is, you owe it to yourself to go in now and find out if the FDA-approved laser treatments or the PRP procedures can work for you to prevent further hair loss and then restore your hair. These are non-surgical treatments. They're pain-free. I've utilized them. I've also gotten the multi-unit hair grafting procedure. I'm growing my hair back because I got my free consultation, and they gave me the tools to grow my hair back, and they'll do the same thing for you. You go to growyourhairback.com, or you call them and get that free consultation now. You're going to be thankful. And it's free. Just get the information and then make a decision. 703-763-0016, 703-763-0016.